Hey, Mr. Williams.
Hey, Cooper, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, sir. You?
Yeah, man, I'm here. I see that once again you are the lonely soul here.
So far. Um, yeah, sir. I'm asking for a favor, negotiation, really. Um,
Negotiation.
I'm not finished. I'm not finished with the model, but I'll finish it, hand it in, but I'll still do the collaborative.
Okay, no problem. No problem. No problem. All right, so I'm going to give a little more time for everybody to come in. Is there like a presentation going on?
No, sir. I don't know. I don't know anything about the third years.
I figure. Okay, I see more and more people. No, actually, that's me. All right. Well, I'm just going to give it a little while and let everybody come in. All right.
Okay, no problem. So I can just still work on the model. Whenever I finish it, give it in, but still work with the guys with the collaborative.
Yeah, we're gonna have to divide the service. That's part of the thing. Right?
No problem.
Hello, guys. Um, Donald, you there? Morris, you
I'm
there?
here, sir.
Right. Any word from the rest of your classmates?
We currently anything, let me text in the group and see what's going on.
Yeah, man. See if you can reach out to them. Hello, people. I see some more persons has arrived. It doesn't look like we will get more people, or will it? You guys there?
Yes, sir.
All right. You had posted the request in the group?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so in the meantime, how are you guys with the state of your model? Being that we are now technically behind the date. What I heard from Andrea already. Are you guys done with your model? Almost done?
On my part, almost done, sir. I need to put in my doors and furniture.
Okay. All right. Well, we're starting a new topic today. That's why I'm trying to give everybody a little time to come in. Is there anybody here from Manila's group? Nope. This is all from the morning group.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay then. Oh, what happened to my my presentation? It went. Oh, there it is. Right. All right. Well, it is now 9:42, so we're just going to just roll with whoever is in the bus. Right? Okay, so we are talking about collaboration in Revit, right? And well, this topic has been well, I can give you a little joke about this topic. This topic has been kind of, hold on. So this topic has been kind of underrated for a couple of I would say years, because what happens is that usually what would happen is most of we just kind of default to the traditional ways of working collaboratively, which is kind of you give me a file and I give you a file, and that's how we work together. But I know a lot of you, anybody did any presentations yet on BIM in the lecture session?
I think only the one group went. I'm not sure if anybody from
All right.
that group is here.
Right. So I know that in those presentations, you talk about all the advantages of BIM and collaboration, and then there's so much nice videos of teams working together and all of these things. I'm not sure which group is doing which research, but I know pretty much most persons discover that about BIM, right? It's kind of the nice shiny surface of BIM, which is great. But the truth is that when you go to most firms, especially locally, well, hopefully things are changing. But of recently, basically, we still kind of work in these independent silos. You know, we're not necessarily collaborating in the way that most of your research is showing you. And the core of it is actually using collaborative features. So every BIM software has a way of collaborating, right? What are some BIM software? I mean, Vectorworks has a BIM component. Anybody here use ArchiCAD?
Yes, I do.
Right, ArchiCAD also has a BIM component, right? And of course, Revit has a BIM component, right? So what this is, well, the nature of BIM is that you have one central model and you generate everything from that model, elevations and so forth. However, collaboration using BIM is sharing that central model, right? Between other individuals, between other professions and so forth. So we're hopefully getting there, but you know that saying, dance a yard before you dance abroad, right? So within the realm of architecture, right, most of you are already collaborating to create designs and all of these things. So you guys should be kind of the stewards of collaboration, right? You guys should be the ones that are collaborating with each other. Maybe it's on a large project and you do department A of this building, you do department B and so forth. So rather than you working on department A, saving it to a file, sending it, emailing it, or putting it in a drive, and then you copy department A onto department B and merge it together in your file, those days are done. So we now work collaboratively, simultaneously. And that is the aspect of Revit that we're going to look at. And we're going to use that to do part 2 of your major project, right? So we're going to cover this in 2 classes, right? The semester is almost done. There's about 3 or 4 classes officially left. This is basically your last topic, right? You already know how to use Revit. from the last couple of weeks. So all we're going to do now is demonstrate how to use Revit in a collaborative way. And then you guys are going to use it to do part 2 of your assignment, right? So we're going to do the kind of theory behind it, and I'm going to demonstrate it to you now. And then you guys are going to, between now and next week, you're going to divide yourself into groups. And that would be groups of, I think it's about 30 odd persons. So, oh, I do believe that we use the same group. You guys are already divided into groups for your theory project. Am I right?
Yes.
Right. So basically, you're going to use those groups. You're going to select one among you that has the best Revit model of the major project, right? And then you are going to proceed to do assignment 2, which is the collaboration aspect of Revit. How much group members are there in your theory groups per group?
I think it's about 4.
Right. Yeah, I figured that's
4 or 5.
4 or 5, yeah. Yeah, usually it's less than 6. So that is how you will divide yourselves, right? Now, in this class, we're going to look at it from a demonstrative point of view. And then we are going to set you up by next class. So by next class, every group should designate a Bim manager, meaning somebody who is going to manage the Bim model, meaning they're going to store the central file, the host file, or the project file on their computer, and they're going to help to manage the process. Now, this is how most offices today, or I should say should operate. All right. This is how offices today should operate. And usually there is somebody who is a little bit techie who normally hopefully governs this process, right? So if we look here, the idea behind collaboration is that there are a few ways that we can collaborate and share files with team members who are also using the same software, right? So you might be working on a project, and because of COVID, right, this is a very real thing, and this has been plaguing the firms nowadays. And it is just since COVID, everybody is kind of running around saying, oh my goodness, what was Mr. Williams teaching in Revit class? We should have listened, right? Right? So collaboration allows you to work in different locations, right? So somebody could be in Kingston that is modeling the particular blocks of a building, another person in Clarendon doing the annotations, and somebody else in Montego Bay that's doing maybe another area, but they're all working on the same model. Now, this is no secret to us. We have been doing this for a while, but the methods by which we have been doing it is primarily through referencing, right? And some persons call it external referencing, and those of you who are AutoCAD users, they will recognize the term XREF. Anybody ever heard the term XREF before? No? Okay, I guess we're going into this new kind of generation. The term is not really used anymore. But anyway, referencing is a way of working where you reference files in order to generate new content. So for example, if I did the ground floor, you would use my file as a reference to build the upper floor, right? Simple kind of concept. And that's kind of how we've been using collaboration. It's kind of like how we use tracing paper, where, you know, we might draw something and then we put that on a light table and use that as a reference to draw the next thing, right? That's the basic idea. But we've taken a step further nowadays, and we've gone into collaboration, and that allows us to use, that allows multiple professionals to work together. Now, this is like the holy grail of collaboration, which we haven't really got to yet. We're still learning it, to use it amongst our own industry, meaning between architect and architect. But the holy grail of collaboration is now going between architect and engineer, between engineer and quantity surveyor, and all of these things. And I'm sure you guys are doing that in your research in the theory class. And it sounds like a beautiful concept, but as I say, you have to just get the foundations of it. You have to actually use it. Just the bare foundation of how collaboration works. And traditionally, an engineer, maybe an architectural firm, would export their Revit drawings as DWG and hand over those DWGs to the engineer. And then the engineer uses those files as a reference, XREF, whatever terms we used to. And on top of that file, they draw their modifications and then send that DWG back to the architect. And the architect now references that file over their file to see if they have to make any change. And I mean, you know, it's like that whole kind of way of using tracing paper to do the work. And what BIM is allowing us to do is that we don't have to like export a reference for you to use, but just give the engineer access to the model and let them manipulate the model remotely from their offices. They don't have to be in your office, right? So does everybody understand that concept? Any questions thus far?
It was crystal. It was clear.
Okay, cool. So most of us probably kind of know this theory already from doing the research. So of course it reduces time by dividing the work amongst team members, right? So you take the upper floor, you take the lower floor, you know, you do this section of the building, I do this section. I mean, you know, and dealing with them sequentially. Now we can deal with them simultaneously. So there are basically two ways that we can work collaboratively in Revit. We can do it either by linking or by using work sharing. Now, linking is basically another word for external reference. It's the same concept, right? I should have opened this file earlier because it's usually big. So let me start opening this now before I get to this part of the presentation. I have an example here of a project that uses linking, which is kind of built off the traditional way of collaborating. Example of go. All right. All right. Okay, good. It's opening. Right. So we can do it the traditional way of linking, and linking is like, as I said, it's like X reference. It means that I am referencing your lower floor to build my upper floor. Or work sharing, which is I have full access to whatever you're drawing simultaneously with you having full access to whatever I am drawing, right? So that is the concept behind it. Now, So this is an example of linking files in Revit. And I'm gonna show you that on another screen. Just give it a moment. So I can share a portion of my screen. Okay, there we go. Okay, and you're seeing the Revit screen now. Yep. All right. So this, for example, is a project that has elements that are linked, right? Do I have it in there? Yes, I do. Okay. Now, okay. Now, from what you can see here, this is the architectural component of the building. But if you look down in this corner here, which I know that you can't probably make out the text, right? But what they are different. Can I actually resize this? Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Right. So you can kind of see where these files are linked, right? And what you can see linked is the furniture, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and then the structural that are all linked together. So if I kind of zoom around here, I think this is moving this. Oops, sorry, I need to maximize this. I'm going to try and just zoom in and zoom out so that you can kind of see the differences here. All right, so you will notice that there are MEP elements in this drawing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to manage. I'm going to manage links. There are our links there. And what I'm going to do is this Zoom is kind of blocking my icons. Give me a sec. There we go. All right. Okay. Come on. Okay. Yes. I know Revit. I know. Let's let that load in. Right. So this is all the furniture that was laid out in that project. And this is another Revit file. So this is a Revit file of just the furniture. And if what happens is that in placing this furniture, let's just say maybe it's an architectural designer who works in the office and they're only responsible for laying out the furniture, then what they would do is reference the previous drawing, which is a linked drawing. What I should do is probably open more than one Revit so that you can see it in action. But right now, that reference is not linked because it's turned off and only what this person adds in is what is seen here. So this person is able to enable the entire drawing, the architectural segment of the drawing, or disable it, right? And that's essentially what linking is. It basically, you reference you reference the original file, and then you add your layer on top of that layer. Okay, so that's mainly the traditional way of doing that. Let me kind of switch back here to back over to this guy right here. And essentially what you do is you say, well, the mechanical plus the furniture equal mechanical and furniture. And, you know, the two files, you can't edit. The person who is doing the mechanical can't edit the furniture designer's work because that's a different file and they have that file working with. That's like a different Revit file. So at the end of the day, those are actually individual files that individual persons work with, which you can kind of see here. There they are. So these are the different files. And one person has this file working with, another person has that file, and so forth and so forth. But the disadvantage of working this way is that you can't edit each other's files. So, you know, if a wall needs to be moved, you have to call your team member. We have to tell, all right, Donald, can you move that window in that wall? Which is going to be kind of annoying to do every single time. All right. Now, the scenario for work sharing is that it allows multiple team members to work on the same project at the same time. Now, this is what we're going to be doing for this major project. And essentially what it is that you do have one central model, and then you have what's called work sets. And work sets are kind of like layers. For those of you who have been using Revit so far, I guess you realize that Revit doesn't really have layers, right? It's not like AutoCAD or Photoshop or whatever that has like layers. But it has layers in the form of work sets. And work set is like saying that, hey, user one, you own layer one, right? User two, you own layer two. Though they own it, what they're really doing is issuing permissions of access to modify that part of the model. So user one can say that, okay, though I own this section of the building, you know, I can allow anybody to modify this part of the building. Or I can say, no, I don't want anybody to mess with this part of the building, right? Or an administrator can override that and say, okay, user one, well, I'm not giving you, I'm going to open your section of the building so any user can modify that section. All right. Are we understanding so far? Any questions?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay. All right. I hope that we're all here. I mean, it's only about like 4 of us, but anyway, proceeding. So now how this works is that there is a central file, and for that central file, all users would need to have access to that Revit file. So it needs to be in a location that you can access. It needs to be on a network in the cloud, somewhere where user one and user two, though they have different computers running, they can go to a common location to access this file. So that's the first thing. Now, what happens is that Revit will enable the feature of work sets. And what work sets does is that it divides the models into like different sections. Now, by default, you have to set this up. It's like layers. It's like when you open, what program you guys use? Everybody in here use AutoCAD? You've used AutoCAD before? Or all right, everybody
I've used it before.
Right, everybody in here use Photoshop. So that's one example. When you open up Photoshop, you have a layer working on. You can decide to do everything on that layer, or you can create a new layer so that you can, better control your model. So what worksets does, it gives you the ability to create these quote unquote layers, but it's not created by default. By default, the entire model is one big layer. and then you decide what section is divided into what section. Now, when it enables work sets, it saves the model to a central file. Now, a central file is like a modified Revit file. You could almost call it a different file format, but technically it's still a RVT file. So hence it's still a file that you can open in Revit, but it's a special version of a Revit file, right? And that, I mean, in my opinion, sometimes I think Revit should have just gave it like a new file format, but you know, it's still a RVT file. Okay, give me 1 second. All right. Now, this central file is stored on a particular computer or in the cloud. And then what happens is that each user connects to the central file. Now, make sure. Okay, you guys hear me okay? No.
Yes,
okay. No. Here is the trick with the central file. Now, here's the trick with the central file. You don't really open the central file, but what happens is that the central file kind of duplicates itself, and then it gives the user access to that duplicate. Right? Now, this is the part that sometimes confuses some persons because sometimes we think that we open the central file. Now, this duplicated version of the file is what is synchronized to the central file. So in essence, nobody messes with the central file itself. Now, the great thing about this is that you can take this duplicated file with you, right? So for example, if you work in the office and you're updating something, and then you need to go home, maybe you're not going to be in work physically for a week, then you just take that central file with you, you work on it, and then when you come back to the office or when you plug back into the network, then that mirrored central file will synchronize itself to the main central file. All right.
and it does that automatically.
That's a good question. It doesn't do that automatically. So you have to kind of initiate that process. And at first it might seem a bit troublesome, like why do I have to do that? But there's like a reason. Now here is the other interesting thing about this system is So let's say, for example, you have the central file, and the central file has that main model there, and each user have access to that model. Now, notice that user 2 has access to a particular section of the model, and user 1 has access to a particular section of the model as well. Now, this is determined by the work sharing. So for example, the group, you guys working as a team, determine that, hey, I'm going to work on this part of the building and you're going to work on that part of the building. Now, when you have that central file, that mirrored central file with you, you have access to the entire building in it. But whatever access you set at the time when the central file was synced, that is the options that you will take with you. So for example, user 1 and user 2 comes into the office Monday morning, and at that point, user 1 says that, okay, I'm going to restrict access to my section. User 2 say, I'm going to restrict access to my section. All right. Now, if user 1 and user 2 leaves, and on Tuesday, user 1 and user 2 are in 2 different locations, they're not synchronized with Central. Though they have the entire model, when user 1 tries to access user 2's part of the model, it will tell them that they have no access because that access has been set from Monday and hasn't been changed. If that access needs to be changed, then you would need to, both files would need to be synchronized back on Central. Right? So that's one way. That is the recommended way when you're working with especially a lot of team members. However, so this would be, for example, if user 2 is trying to access user 1's file in their file that they have taken with them, it would tell them no. Now, here's a question. What would happen if user 2 lost their local file? So let's say that that duplicated file that is created, maybe their computer crash or something happened. Anybody can tell me? Anybody?
Understand?
What would happen if user 2 lost their file? Let's say that, because remember, let's go back to this thing. Remember how this works? Central creates these mirrored files, and user 2 grabs his mirror file and go home with it, and user 1 grabs their mirror file and go home with it. So what if user 2 loses their file? What if them computer crash or something?
Would they be able to go, wouldn't they be able to just go back to Central? But they lose all the progress.
So. And that is exactly so. Whatever progress you did after you last synchronized, you would have lost, but you can still get back the file from Central. And when you get back the file from Central, you're going to get it back with what user 1 did. So this whole method of using a central file is, that's why the central file is so important where it's stored, because that houses all the information. And if any one person loses their file, then anything up to the point when they last synchronized with Central would have been in the central file. So it really is a loss prevention method that really works,
You're just supposed to synchronize with Central as much as possible.
Right. And different companies are different teams have different rules governing that, right? So for example, some persons some persons will synchronize before they leave the office. Other persons, they're with the cloud-based, so you can synchronize anytime. Now the setup that we're going to use, it's going to be a kind of hybrid, and it will allow you guys to synchronize anytime as long as you have internet. All right. Okay. Now, what happens if the central file is lost? You know, God forbid there's a fire and burns down the office.
Upload it like a cloud, I think it's
Let's
upload it to a cloud, you know.
Well,
Everything's
true.
lost.
But suppose it wasn't in the cloud. It was like at a particular address in Kingston, and you know, you're doing an architectural competition. So one person, another firm decides to sabotage the other firm.
Well, I guess I have to start over at that point.
Well, the good thing in that situation is that you can rebuild the central file because technically everybody has a copy of it. Right? Remember, you know, that little mirrored file is a copy of the entire central file with the instructions along with it. So it can be rebuilt from any one of the persons. Maybe the latest person to synchronize with central will be the best person to rebuild it from. So it really prevents any kind of loss of data, this method of collaboration. Okay, so there are two ways that we can use work sharing in Revit. We can do it locally on the computer, and that service is free. Or you can do it in the cloud, which service is not free. But technically in the cloud, it is wherever you want to access the files, right? Now, we could try any version of them. However, hold on, if we're going to use the cloud version, we would be limited to a 30-day trial, and everybody would have to have the full legit student version of Revit. So that's usually a challenge. We tried it 1 year and that was a problem because, I mean, if you guys don't finish your project within the demo time period, then you can't access your model anymore. So, you know, that's not exactly a good option, right? And then there is the local version, which is free, which we used to do as well pre-COVID, where we used to set up a network in the computer lab, and one of those computers would be the central for all the models. But then everybody had to come in physically to the lab to synchronize with central. So that was another option, but it also had its downfalls, but it was free. So those are the two main options of working together in Revit, using work sharing as the way to collaborate. Now, I have come up with a method that we've been using for a couple of years that we're able to do like a hybrid between cloud and local. And this method helps us to kind of circumvent having to take out a subscription. And it also allows us to use the free method. But what's the catch? There's always a catch, right? The catch is that it has to be set up. So there's a little bit of a technical work to get it set up, but it uses completely free systems. All right. Now this is what we're going to look at. Any question thus far? Give me one second. All right. So any questions thus far with this method? Everybody understand what we're saying so far? All right. Now, what I'm going to do in this class is just demonstrate how this works. I know that some of us might not be set up, but after this demonstration, the idea is that you guys can watch this video and make sure that you're ready for next class. So coming next class, as I said, every group needs to designate a BIM manager. And the BIM manager is supposed to be the one that governs this process, which is what happens in the office anyway. In most offices, you have a person. Probably that person is also a person that draws as well, but they're also a person that manages the collaboration between the teams. Now, the best person for this process is a person who has a little bit of knowledge about the computer. They don't need to be like a network administrator, but they just need to have a knowledge about, you know, general computing, networking knowledge, right? Now, this hybrid method utilizes OneDrive along with a program called it's called Virtual Subs, which is I think the short for substitute. It's basically a virtual drive, and there's a link to it on the website. It doesn't need to be installed, you just need to run it. And when it runs, it creates a virtual drive on the computer. Now, what happened is that I remember last year and even this year, another group, when you guys move on to fourth year and you need to work collaboratively, another group tried to use Google Drive. And for the most part, they said Google Drive worked for them. But the problem with Google Drive is there is a issue that may happen. I don't know if you guys realize that the new Google Drive, now gives you a virtual drive, a Drive G. Anybody notice that? Anybody have Google Drive installed on their computer? No? Some people? So when you install the new Google Drive, you do get a virtual drive. However, I'm going to recommend that you don't use it because what happens is that it will work if there's a particular scenario that happens, it will break the project. What I mean break it, meaning that Revit will just tell you there's an error in synchronizing the file and it can cause some real headache. You know, so it might work if two persons happen to synchronize at the same time. The way in which Google Drive handles that scenario, it causes the Revit Central file to break. And that is an issue. So I would not use Google Drive to set it up, though Google Drive is a little bit simpler. But because of that issue, that's what's going to cause you more headache. Now, OneDrive is the tried and true way that this process have worked with. OneDrive is a little tricky. Most people don't really use their OneDrive. Some people have a OneDrive already on a computer, and usually most of it is filled up. You know, Microsoft kind of tries to force their cloud method upon us. So we need to have a Microsoft account to sign in our computers and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of files will automatically go to your OneDrive. So what a lot of you might realize is that your OneDrive is like filled up already. But the reason that I'm suggesting OneDrive is the way in which Microsoft OneDrive handles when there is multiple duplicates of files. So for example, if two persons click synchronize simultaneously, it won't cause an issue. All right, so that is an important point, because what happened is that last time some students said, no, I'm not going to use Google Drive because Google Drive is easier, everybody have it already, and they didn't have any space in their OneDrive, and they don't like OneDrive and whatever. So they went ahead and used Google Drive. And you know, it worked, but then if that scenario happens where two persons happen to synchronize, one person is in Montego Bay, a person is in Kingston, and the two of them could synchronize at the same time, and Google recognizes that and just kind of gets confused and causes the way in which it does its thing, it just causes Revit to say, hey, I can't recognize what's happening here. And basically what it amounts to is that you lose that shadow file. So you have to like open back another shadow file from the central file. So you would end up losing the work that you did. So that's a no-no. Like playing Russian roulette with your Revit work. All right, so does everybody understand that important point? Why we're using OneDrive?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. Okay. 1 second again. All right. All right. Now we're gonna kind of set it up, and what I have here is I actually have two computers. Right, this is the last slide, right? I have two computers set up for user 1 and user 2. I have them set up on my table in front of me, and basically I'm going to play out what will happen between you and your group members. Now, when you're in your group, it's going to be 5 of you. So what I'm suggesting is that the Bim Manager would go on each computer. Well, you're not going to be physically there, but you would walk everybody kind of through the process and help them to kind of get set up. Now, once you get set up, everything is good. You can just work and sync, and you don't have to worry about things again. But once you but to get set up, you need to do it correctly, and there are a couple of pitfalls that you need to avoid. So this is why we're dedicating 2 classes towards this. As a matter of fact, it would be great if you guys could actually test this, and then when you come back for Ms. Ramrock's class, maybe, are you having a presentation for Ms. Ramrock's class today?
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, then that is out of the question then, right? But I'm hoping that you guys can actually test it out so that you can like message me or call me or something to say, hey, this is working, this is not working. Because this, you need to have this thing set up for each group member. All right. I'm going to walk you through it next week. So for example, for those of you who are not set up already, when we come to class next week, everybody must come with their OneDrive. They have at least 300 megabytes free to work on the project in their OneDrive. They must have their OneDrive set up. If they don't remember your password, try and remember it, create a new one, whatever. But everybody must have OneDrive installed on their computer, which is pre-installed with Windows anyway. And everybody should have the virtual Drive app, which is on the website. It is a portable app. You just need to download it and run it. That's all you need to do. All right. Now, I've used this method to work on full-fledged projects. So I know that it does work and it does handle a whole heap of stress. We have been working in large teams and we have used this method, and every file synchronizes just fine and there are no issues. All right. So, all right, so let's get going. Usually this session, we would do it in in the lab and I would call up a student to use the second computer while I use this computer, and I would kind of simulate what that process is like. But I'm going to kind of put on two hats and do that demonstration here. And how I will do it is I will close this. I'm going to use this this interesting method here. I'm going to use director. I need my mouse. One sec. All right, so I got a laptop and a desktop, and I have like two mouse here. So I'm simulating fully what it will be like to have two persons using this. So you just need to multiply this process by everybody else, right? All right. I'm going to use a program called AnyDesk. Now, this program, I think everybody needs to have, because if you experience any technical problems, then this is how I'll be able to help you solve this by getting access to your computer. All right, now what I'm gonna do is, there we go, kind of share this. Setting this up. Change my paper background to, where is the thing, to a color. Yeah. All right. Then is there anybody here from Alila's group? She's asking if there are any students that came over from her group. Nope. Nope. Everybody's from my group. All right.
No, sir.
Okie doke. All right. Okay. Now, I need to like share this in high resolution mode. So let me do that. There we go. All righty. I'm gonna put this in the middle here. I'm gonna try to do this very interesting setup here. Okay, now what I have here is, carry this over somewhere. So there are two computers that you're seeing here, right? So on the left is user one, I guess, which is the desktop, and on the right is my laptop, right? And I'm using the laptop via AnyDesk application that allows me to remotely use the computer. So it's fully acting like a remote computer. And both of them are connected to the internet. All right. Okay, so let me change my sharing method to one that I can zoom if necessary. All right, so If I need to zoom into a particular thing, I can just do something like that, and it will zoom, and I can zoom out like that. All right, good. All right, lovely. Okay, now the first thing is that you guys are going to need to access the virtual drive software, right? And that should be on the website. Let's jump over to the website real quick. All right, and student computing, and we're going to go to Bim. Hope it's still there. Try and locate that quickly. I'm just making sure that it's that the file is accessible on the site. Just give me 1 second. Okay. All right, I got it. And we're gonna add this to let's see. Gonna add that to Bim and student content and major project. All right. Okay, there we go. So that should be there now. All right, there we go. So when you go onto the website, I'm just gonna just switch monitors here real quick, make life easier. There's a quick switch button that Zoom had. Okay, so when you go to the website, so this is the website that we have here. We're gonna scroll all the way down, till you get to the individual and major project. All right, you continue scrolling down, and right below the handout, so this is the handout section here, right below the handout where you see supporting files, you will see a compressed file that says virtual subs, right? And all you're gonna do is just click it, and then you click download. There we go. And it will be in a zipped file. When you proceed to that zip file, you're gonna need a software called WinRAR, right? Which is like WinZip. It's a program that that compresses files. So come on, let's wait on this thing. Yeah, right. So this is what that file should look like when you have WinRAR installed. And all you have to do is extract this, and you extract it by right clicking and you say extract, right? This is how you extract files normally. But for this one, you're going to need to use WinRAR. And I'm going to choose where I want to extract it, which is that same location. Actually, I can just right click and say extract here. It's going to ask you for a password, which is 1234, right? And there you go. You go into this folder here, and that's the program right there. And all you have to do is just run it from that folder. You can put this folder somewhere where you can remember it, because remember, this application needs to be running in order for you to synchronize with files. All right. All right, everybody got that thus far? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this here. Well, let's go back to the view where we can look on both computers so that we can see what's happening from both point of view. So I'm going to switch back over to this. All right. So now we're seeing both computers. So on one computer, we have double-clicked the virtual sub, and this is what we see come up. It's just going to be blank. Now, in some cases, it's going to ask you, hey, do you want us to create some automatic network drive, blah, blah, blah. You're going to say no. You don't want it to do anything, because you're going to do things your way, basically, right? All right, now the next thing you're going to do now, so on the laptop, I'm going to do the same thing. So on the laptop, I'm going to go over here to the CSA Tech Jamaica website. I'm going to go to student and computing, and then to building information modeling. Scroll all the way down till I get to the the major project. Here we go. And under supporting files, there we go. I'm going to download it on this computer as well. Choose download. There it is. I'll go to the directory that I have it downloaded to, which in most cases is your downloads folder, I think. All right, so create a new folder. And just drag it, oops, just drag it over there. There we go, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to extract here and put in the password, 1234. There we go. All right, so now I have the application on my laptop, and I'm going to double click that, and the application will also run. So let's ignore these drives that you see here, because when you open it, it's just going to be blank. All right, let me minimize these things. Where did it go? Okay, there we go. Right. All right, so I have my laptop on this side. Let me get my backup tool real quick. Okay, so remember all the Bim managers you should be watching now, right? So on this side, I have my laptop. And on this side, I have my desktop. So I'm going to say PC. So that way we can kind of keep track of what is what. All right, so on the laptop, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to decide, you're going to make sure that you have OneDrive set up. All right, so after you download the make sure that you have the virtual program. So if I look down here on my bar, I will see that I have OneDrive already set up. All right, I can double click that. This is what my OneDrive looks like. All right. And as I said, OneDrive comes with Windows, so you probably notice that it pops up and gives you all kind of annoying things usually. Now on the desktop, I'm going to so on the desktop, which is here we go. OneDrive. Just waiting for. There we go. All right. That's just kind of, this thing is kind of blocking me. There we go. All right, good. So here we go. So this is the OneDrive on the desktop. So it's all set up and good to go. Now, so basically what you're going to do is you're going to create a folder on your OneDrive. This is the Bim Manager. And then they're going to share that folder with everybody else. And that folder will be the basis of where all the files are located, right? Now, this process, I'm going to encourage the Bim managers to do this on the internet, meaning in a browser, not on the computer, right? It makes life way easier. So on the computer, you want to ensure that everyone has OneDrive installed, definitely. But when you're distributing that shared folder to the different group members, I want you guys to do that from the cloud. All right, so I'm going to assume that the laptop, which is where you see the L, that is going to be the Bim manager's computer. So let's say that that's the person that's going to host the central file and share it. Okay, so if that person is indeed the Bim manager, I'm going to go to my browser and I'm going to go to OneDrive.com and I'm going to sign in into OneDrive. Somewhere. Right. I'm going to sign in into OneDrive. So I'm going to go to sign in. And of course, I'm going to sign in with the same user that I'm using on my computer, right? So that's important. So do I remember who I'm signed in as? I'm signed in as, I can always just check that in my settings. I'm signed in as Creative Master. Okay, great. So I'm going to sign in here as Creative Master. Great. And I should have my password saved and okay, whatever. All right, good. So now I'm logged in into OneNote and no, I don't want to buy any more space. All right, now all I'm going to do now is to create a folder in the cloud in my OneDrive, and then maybe I'll call that Bim Collab Test. I'm just going to call it that. Let's see. Okay, that's great. Oh, see, it's telling me that my OneDrive is almost filled, so I suspect that would be similar to some of you guys there. All right, where's that folder? Bim Test. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do with this folder now is that I'm going to share that with my other user, right? And my other user that I'm going to use, just for the sake of this example, I'm going to use a different user. Can I do that at this moment? Let's see. Let me see, who am I using on the other computer? Actually, I'm using the same user, but that's okay. I don't want to use a different user because I'm going to have to wait for OneDrive to like synchronize on my desktop, and that's going to take a while. So here is what I need to do. So what I need to do now is that I need to share this folder with the other group members. Now this process, I mean, most people should be familiar with this. If you're using Google Drive, you've probably been sharing folders with persons over Google Drive. So it's a similar process. As I've said, there are some pitfalls to avoid. Okay, so for your group members, you should not, I know you can use more than one OneDrives on one computer, meaning you can sign in as multiple users, but don't do that. Let's just keep the process really simple. We don't want to overcomplicate duplicate it. So if you have on your computer a particular OneDrive and for whatever reason you don't want to use it, don't create an additional OneDrive folder on that computer. Instead, just sign out and sign into whatever user you want to use in OneDrive. All right. We want to keep this process really simple. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is just share this with other persons. So I'm just going to go to share. And in this case, I would type the user Creative Masters JM, which is a little weird because I am sharing it to myself. I'm going to share it to somebody else just to kind of show you what the process looks like. So I'm going to share it to Brian Williams jm@hotmail.com, right? And I would just continue to type all my group members here to share folder with, right? And I'm going to click send invite to this Bim collab folder. Okay. Are there any questions so far? You guys following? Hello?
Yes, sir. Following.
Following? All right, cool. Now on my desktop computer, just close Steam. Right. On my desktop computer, I am gonna sign in as Brian Williams just to I want to try to simulate this process as close to what you guys are gonna experience. What did I do with OneDrive? Come on. Did I close OneDrive? Let's see. Oh, there it is. All right, so let me kind of zoom in here so you can kind of see. So that's a little too big. There we go. All right, so this is on my taskbar. So when I click my OneDrive here, right, I can always go to settings, and then that can tell me, you know, what user I'm signed in as. So I'm signed in as Creative Masters on my desktop. Now, as I'm saying, don't choose to add an account, right? Because we don't want to complicate the process. Instead, if I did not want to use Creative Masters JM on this computer, I would just choose to unlink this PC. Do you want to unlink account? Yes. And there we go. I have unlinked my account. So now it says OneDrive isn't connected. So now I'll go back to settings here. Come on. It's loading. Come on. There we go. I'll go back to settings. And of course, I'm going to get my little OneNote pop-up that's telling me to set up OneDrive. And I'm going to set this up as Brian Williams JM at hotmail.com. I hope I remember my password. Nowadays, so many passwords to remember. What's my password again? I think it's, nope. Nope. Ah, I remembered. Okay, good. All right, so next you're going to choose where you want the OneDrive folder to be stored, right? So you can use a default location, but if you're like me and you have just signed out of a previous OneNote and you want to sign into a new one, you don't want to like put back that OneNote, that OneDrive folder in the same location as you had the previous OneDrive. So I'm going to choose change location, and I'm just going to store that like somewhere else on my computer. So it's smaller. I'm probably going to just put that in. Maybe I'll just make a new folder and call it Drive. Something like that. Basically, I'm just storing this new OneDrive in a new location. So there we go. So I'm storing it there. All right, lovely. I'm going to choose next. And so remember, so this process is representing in case those of you who might, for whatever reason, you don't want to use the current OneDrive that you are currently signed in as. So you sign out and sign in as the user that you want to use, and that's it. All right, so I'm gonna go next, and come on thing. And it's doing its thing. All right. Okay, now, okay, great. I'm gonna go next, next. All your files are good to go. And no, I don't want to get the mobile app. And okay, fine. You can open the OneDrive folder. And as you can see here, I'm signed in now as Brian Williams, JM, and that's it. All right, great. So now, back on my desktop, I am now going to look for that invite that I have been sent, right? So I'm going to go to onedrive.com, and it's no thanks. Sign out here, and I'm going to sign in as the OneDrive user that I've just used a while ago. So I'm going to sign in as there we go. And there we go. All right, great. So I'm in. So right now I am, I know, okay, no, I don't want that. This is the OneDrive that was just shared to me, right? So let me just view both of them so you can kind of see what's happening. So on, this is a little smaller. So that we can kind of see what's happening. Let me just arrange these windows nicely. All right, there we go. Okay, so on the laptop, you can see, let me just finish writing this out so that we don't get confused. So laptop. On the laptop, you can see where I shared this folder with Brian Williams, JM. And oh, I didn't click send, did I? I think I did click send. Okay, I just shared it. So, and on the PC side, I should receive, usually you get an email that says somebody has shared a file with you, and it should pop up in your shared section in OneDrive. All right, So let me just refresh this. All right, so I'm going to have a lot of shared stuff here. What's an easy way to find what was recently shared with me again? Go to shared with me and I call it Bim Collab. Let me see if I can find it this way. It's not going to find it. It's this vertical order. Let me check my email. Let me see if I got that notification. I guess I haven't got that notification yet. Okay, I did share this. Let me look in details on my PC to see who it is shared to. Okay, so if you look on the PC here, you can see that if I don't remember who I've shared the file with, you can see who have access to this file. So over here should have your group members saying that they all have access to the file. All right. Sometimes the access take a little while to come in. So I'm just waiting for that to pop up in my OneDrive. Okay, here it is. It finally came up. So here it is, Bim Collab Test. So once your group, your Bim Manager shares that folder with you, it should pop up in your OneDrive. So what I'm going to do now is to just check it, and I'm going to say, add to my OneDrive. Add that folder. So now when I go to my OneDrive files, I will see Bim Collab as a file that is located in my OneDrive, right? And I can see this link here that, let's zoom in a bit. I can see the little link here that tells me that this file has been shared with me, right? So, okay, great. Now, once that process is done, both of you should have a file called Bim Collab Test on your computers. So let's check that out. So on my desktop, let's close these out. Come on. Okay, good. Okay, so on my desktop here, you can see where I now have that folder called Bim Collab Test on my desktop. And on my laptop now, my OneDrive, here's my laptop. You can see that I also have a file called Bim Collab Test. Let me go in that folder there. And on my desktop, I'm going to go in that folder there. So right now, we now have the same folder that is shared to both of us, right? I'm going to just open both OneDrive folders here. So right now, both of these folders are connected through the internet. So for example, if I make a directory called Central file, then notice that on my PC, you see a file now created called Central file, and on my laptop, that file is also there. So that's how you know that both of these folders are synced. So this is the first benchmark that you need to achieve with all your group members. Every group member needs to have a folder on their computer that is synchronized with the Bim Managers folder. Okay, any questions thus far?
No, sir.
All right. So, this process is very similar to those that you already use Google Drive. It's just that you're doing it with OneDrive, which can be a little annoying if you don't already use OneDrive. All right. So now we are ready to use the virtual sub application. So I'm going to open that up now. So this is my laptop that has the virtual sub here, and my desktop. Where is that? Well, right, this is the desktop here. Now, all the virtual sub application is going to do, it is just going to create a virtual hard drive on your computer, just like what Google Drive does. But this is going to create one on your computer. And here is the key point. All group members must have the same drive letter for their virtual drive, right? That part is important. So let's call it drive, U maybe. You can name it, you can give it any drive letter that you want. So on my, let's do the laptop first, right? Because the laptop is the Bim Manager. So the Bim Manager is going to say, okay, guys, the drive we're going to be using for this project is going to be drive U. Everybody agree? Yes, everybody agree. If some persons don't have a drive U, then everybody needs to agree on a drive that they have available on a computer. Not all drives will be available on different computers. So for example, you might notice on this computer, you might have a thumb drive that is using drive F, or something plugged in that is using another drive. So what you need to do is, I usually choose a drive in one of these letters like S and T and U and V, somewhere that is not regularly used when you plug in a thumb drive, because you don't want it to conflict with other devices you have plugged in your computer. All right, so I'm going to choose drive U, and you can give it a name. It doesn't really matter, but let's give it a name. So I'm going to call this Bim Collab Test. And then you need to designate where is the location for the files that will read as drive U. So I'm going to click browse. And in my browse window, I'm going to browse to OneDrive, and I'm going to choose the Bim Collab Test. Okay, so this is the location of my U drive, right? And I'm going to just pick add. And that's it. Now you will see that this is now added where it says drive U, and drive U is linked to the folder called Bim Collab Test. All right, so let's go over to my desktop now. So this is the other user, and they're going to follow suit. So they're going to say, okay, so the Bim Manager said we're using drive U. So we're going to pick drive U. Then we are going to also call it Bim Collab Test. Now, if you don't call it the same thing, that's fine. But, just for consistency, you want to name it the same thing. And then this person needs to find where on their computer is the Bim Collab Test folder, right? So, crap. There we go. Right, so I need to go to browse. I'm going to go to my OneDrive, and there it is, Bim Collab Test, and I'm going to choose OK. So, and I'm going to choose add. So every group member needs to have a virtual drive with its drive U, and it's linked to the Bim Collab test folder. All right, so let's see what that looks like. So whenever you go to my computer, right? So this is my computer on my desktop. I will see that I have a drive U. Here it is. And that drive U is going to be registered as a hard drive. It's a virtual hard drive. But what's really happening is that that virtual hard drive is reading your OneDrive folder, right? Okay, good. So this is the second point that you guys need to have set up. Now, remember, once this is set up, you're good to go. You don't have to go through this process again, which is why it's recommended that you choose a Bim manager that can guide you through this process, right? Okay. All right, great. So both the laptop and the desktop now have the virtual drive set up. So let me go back to where we're viewing both of them. Okay. Oh, I deleted my labels. Let me put that back. So this is the PC. Oops, let me write that properly. I'm writing with the mouse, so forgive me. PC and laptop. Okay. All right, so now we have the networking set up. Now it's time to go over to Revit. So we're going to go to Revit on the laptop, and we're also going to go to Revit on the PC. Now, the Bim manager is going to now create the central file, right? Now, in your case, you're not creating a Revit file from scratch. What's happened is that you guys already have a project, and you're basically going to turn that project into your into a collaborative file. You're not going to be starting a project from scratch where you create a new Revit file and it's blank and all of that stuff. So I'm not even going to show you that way. I'm going to show you the exact experience that you guys should have, right? Okay. Now, what I'm going to do here is that the Bim manager will say, okay, team members, which one of us has the best, most organized Bim model? Now, usually how you select that, you would select the person that have the highest grade, but I haven't gotten any work to mark yet. So you guys won't know which one of the group members will have the best Bim model. So, let's just say you guys assume that, okay, maybe Donald has the best Bim model. So we're going to use his model. So Donald says, okay, fine. Or no, okay, fine. Let me email the Bim manager my model to turn into a collaborative model. All right. So okay. All right, good. So what is recommended is that on the Bim manager computer, we are going to create a folder, and let's call that folder original project file. Okay. And what I'm doing here, I'm placing the file that I got from, in this example, I got from Donald. Say, okay, here is my Revit file for us to use in this group project. All right, so this Revit file is 50 megs big, right? And this file is actually my file that I have working with, right? It's not really Donald's file, which I guess you guys figured. So this is where we start. You need to have the actual file. So now I'm going to go to Revit and I'm going to open that file. So I'm going to go to open. Now look closely what I'm doing. I have copied the file into the folder, into the drive U that you have now created for this project before opening it. That is very critical. You need to open the project from drive U. When you're working, you always have to work from drive U. All right. So I'm going to go to my computer. Let me just kind of zoom in on the Bim Manager's computer here. So I'm going to go to my computer and I'm going to go to drive U. And here it is, original project file. I'm going to go there, and here is the work that I received from the team member who has the best BIM model. So I'm going to open that up. All right, great. This is what it looks like. That's good. Let's look on the 3D view to see what the model itself looks like. All right, great. So this model is basically complete. Let's look at the drawings that were produced. So let's look at the sheets. So we can see that we have a perspective view, we have a site plan, we have floor plans. So this is pretty much a complete project. So when you're selecting the project that you guys want to work from, you want to select somebody that has pretty much completed all of the project. I'm hoping that's everybody, by the way. So notice that I have all of my views set up that I would be delivering for my phase 1 of the project, which is to deliver the design drawings, right? I have my terrain diagram. This even have a little bit more. It even has like roof framing, and you weren't required to do roof framing. All right, anyway, so this is what this project looks like, and that's great. Now it's time to turn it into a shared project, right? And to do that, I'm going to close most of these windows just to kind of not have a whole bunch of stuff open. Okay, there we go. Now, in order to turn this into a shared project, what I would need to do is I would need to go over to Collaborate, and I need to click Collaborate here. Now, once I click Collaborate, I'm going to be presented with this question, right? And what this question is saying is, you know, do you want to use this within your network, or do you want to use it in BIM 360 document management, which is the cloud, right? What do you want to use? Now, remember, we're not going to be using the cloud because that is a subscription service and you only get free 30 days and you have to be using the legit student version. So we're going to choose within your network, and you're going to choose OK. All right. Now, once you do that, well, nothing will seem to happen. You'll be like, okay, nothing has happened. But actually, what has happened is that Revit has now changed this from a regular Revit file into a collaborative Revit file. It's not really going to give you any indication right now that it has done that, but it has indeed done that. Now, while you're in the collaborative version of the file, you will notice that the work sets become active. So when you click on this, you will see work set 1. Now remember, work sets are like layers, right? So remember how Revit intends for you to work, where you say, I'm going to create a layer, and this layer, Kira will work on this layer, and Donna will work on this layer, and Robert will work on this other layer. So that is what the work sets are. Now, interesting thing, you don't have to divide the building into layers. You can do a little bit of Wild West first click, first serve option, which means that if Donald comes in and clicks on this wall here, then that means that if Kira comes in and click on that wall is going to say that, oh, well, Donald is modifying that wall, so you can't change it. But Kira could click on the wall beside it and start to modify that wall, and so forth and so forth. So that is like a little bit of Wild West, where anybody can modify any file. And we're going to simulate that to see what that looks like. So, all right, so now you have work sets enabled. All you need to do now is to save this file. All right, so remember, this is the Bim Manager now has just created the central file. And we're going to go to Save As, and we're going to go to Save. Now, you're not going to overwrite the original project file. Please don't do that, right? Just keep that there as a backup, just in case. And you're going to go to the central. Notice I've created a folder called Central File. That's always wise, because that's where you want to save the central file. So you're going to go in there, and usually what I recommend is that, you know, you can rename the file. So you can probably call this Bim Project Central File. And I love to always put like numbers at the end of my file, because if something gets messed up and you have to create a new central file, then that could be version 2 and version 3. Hopefully that won't happen. So I'm just in the habit of always putting 01 at the end of my file. So I'm going to put 01 there. And I'm going to say save. All right, now once I've done this, I have now created a central file. There we go. And as the Bim Manager, I am now going to close this central file. Before I close, I'm going to click this option right here. This part is important, and say relinquish. Now what relinquish is saying is that, remember we talked about work sets. And right now, this file just has one work set. It just has one layer. And the entire building, everything here is just on one layer. And that one layer is owned by whoever this person is signed in as, right? So in this case, it's signed in as laptop. So laptop is the person that, that owns this layer. So we don't want that to happen. So we're going to say relinquish. And what that does is it says work sets layer does not belong to me. Uh-oh, I'm running out of storage. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, so let's try deleting some files in OneDrive here. So I'm glad I'm experiencing this, because guess what? It might happen to you as well. So remember, so you need at least, I think, 300 megs to do this project. Right, what can I delete? Okay, this is pretty big. I'm just going to remove this, and that should free up my OneDrive. All right, so I'll let that go on working in the background. Okay, so yes, make sure that you have enough space in your OneDrive. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So what I did was I chose to relinquish, which means that I don't want to own the work set 1, which is basically like layer 1, which is all the objects in the scene. All right, now once I've done that, what I want to do is synchronize this with Central. So I'm going to choose Synchronize. This is the icon here, and it's going to like do a little thing and nothing will happen, which is fine. That means nothing happens. That means it's great. It's synchronized just fine. And what I'm going to do now is close this project. Okay, now if you look in your OneDrive, so I'm going to go into that Bim Collab. Sorry, I'm going to go to Drive U. Sorry. Remember, you're always going to be browsing from Drive U. That is super important. Once you're working on this project, you should be using Drive U. So when I go to drive view and I go to central file, you're going to see these files in this folder. And it says, you know, you're going to see the actual central file, and you're going to see this folder that's called central file backup. So basically, you know, you don't want to mess with these files, just leave everything as is. But that's just an indication to say that, okay, everything seems to be working just fine. All right, great. All right, so let's go back to both computers. Okay, so we're just about wrapping up now. So are there any questions thus far? Is there anything that seemed confusing to anybody? Nope.
No, sir.
All right, cool. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, now we're going to look on both computers. So notice that when the Bim manager has set up the central file, he has closed out that file. And that's the thing about Bim. Nobody really owns the file, even the Bim manager himself. Technically, nobody has access to that central file anymore. If you try to access that file, Revit is going to create that shadow copy and say, okay, you want to access this file? I'm going to copy myself and you deal with the copy, but you're not going to mess with the actual central file. And that's the way how a central file operates. All right. Okay, so let's look at both computers now. So remember, on the right, we have the laptop, and on the left, we have the computer, right? So those are the two users. Now, the laptop is the Bim manager, but now that his job is done, he's done setting up the central file, setting up the network, he has now become a regular user, just like everybody else. He has no special privileges over any user that uses this file. So what's going to happen now? On the lab, let's go with the desktop first. So the desktop, which represents your group members. So that group member is going to go to open, and notice that I am going to open the file. I'm not like double clicking on the file. I'm going to recommend that as a best practice, especially when you're working with collaboratively, right? I could have just gone to drive U and go to central file and double click it. If you do that, if it's fine, it will work, but I'm going to recommend that you don't do it that way, right? I'm going to recommend that you open Revit first. You go to open, browse to drive U, browse to drive U. There we go. Go to central file. Remember, you have to open the central file first. And when you open it, you should get a message. Maybe. Yes, should. Or maybe not, but okay. And the same thing for the Bim manager, who has now become a regular user. You're going to go to open, and you're going to go to same place. You're going to go to drive U just the same way and go to central file, and you're going to open that central file now. All right, great. Now you may get a message that would say Revit is going to create a local version of this file, right? That's a normal message if you get it. It is just saying what we have what we had said earlier. Let me show you. Right. Remember earlier we said that, okay, Revit, when you open the central file, when a user attempts to access the central file, Revit really creates a shadow copy of it and then gives the user access to that shadow copy. So when you're using some, depending on the version or something, you might get a message that says, hey, you're opening a central file. Revit is going to create a local copy of the central file on your computer. And you choose okay, that's fine. It's basically telling you what this said it's going to do here. Sometimes it will tell you, sometimes it doesn't tell me. It didn't tell me in our example just now. So I, you know, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Okay. All right. So now that these two persons open these files, they are now actually linked together. So both these persons, oops, let's go back here. There we go. Right. So both these persons can now work remotely on this file and it would now be synchronized. So let's simulate that. As a matter of fact, before I start to work on anything, what I would do, because Revit didn't create that local copy of the file for me, I would now go to File and I would go to Save As. And I would save this version of the file on my computer, meaning I don't need to save it on the drive U, right? Where am I going to? My computer, and I can save this on my desktop. Because remember how Revit works. You are not manipulating the central file. You are really just manipulating a shadow copy of that central file that is particularly made for your user. All right, so so I'm gonna save this on my desktop and I'm gonna call it, well, look what it called it. It called it Bim Project Central File _ Brian Williams. So it actually named it the user that I'm signed in Windows on the computer. Let's go over here and let's try to save this file from the laptop. And let's also save this to the desktop of the laptop. And let's save it here. And okay, and it called it Bim Central File. And I'm not sure why I put this here. Maybe because that was the user who maybe created this file. Maybe, okay, maybe that's the scenario. So I'm going to put creative masters. All right, so this is my file that is here. All right, and I'm going to save it on my computer. So I'm going to save this here. And on the desktop, I'm going to save that there. So remember, these two persons could be in two completely different locations. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Because these computers that you're seeing here are only connected through the internet. Okay. All right, so let's start manipulating stuff now. Now you can use Revit like how you would normally use Revit. So let us say that I needed to make a change. Let's make something definite. Let's make this a little taller or something. Now, when you click on files now, you're going to get this little icon here. I don't know if you can see it. Let me kind of zoom in here. You're going to now get this little icon that looks like that whenever you click on objects. And that's simply saying that this object is up for grabs, meaning if you edit it, if you click on it, the next person who have access to this file can't click on it until you synchronize. All right, so let's give that a test. I'm going to click on this curved wall right here, all right? With the intention to modify this curved wall, right? I haven't modified it yet, I've just clicked on it. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the laptop. I'm going to let's say that I'm on this laptop now in some other location. And I also want to modify this curve wall. And I'm going to click on it here. Now I can click on it, no problem. Now the first person who click on it, which is the PC, I'm going to modify it. So let me drag this up a bit like that. And there we go, it has changed. Now on the laptop, of course, it hasn't changed yet because I have to synchronize that change. Now you don't need to like drag a wall, synchronize, move a wall, synchronize, edit this, synchronize. That's not how you work collaboratively, right? You really synchronize as much as you would normally save, right? So, you know, you do it after a while. Now on the laptop now, let's say that I also wanted to modify this wall. So I'm going to click on it. But when I click on it, I get this message here. And this message is saying that, hey, can't edit this because Brian Williams resaves the element to the central until Brian Williams resaves the element to the central file, which basically means that, hey, I'm editing this element so you can't touch it. I can place a request to say, Brian, I really need to edit this element here. And then a message will pop up. I thought I got more storage. Anyway, oh, I need to wait for it to update, I think. But anyway, I will get a message. Let me just check my storage to make sure that it's okay. Yeah, it's fine. Storage is fine. So that is what the other user will get. Let's go back to both computers now, right? Now, I can mess with something else. So I'm going to choose cancel there. Let's say I want to mess with this wall here, this parapet wall here. I can modify that wall, no problem, and it changes for me, no problem. But what if on the PC, I also want to modify that wall? Well, if I go over to that wall now and I click on it, and I try to modify it, I'm going to get this message now saying that, hey, this other person has modified that wall before you could click on it. So hence, you cannot change that wall until that person synchronizes with Central. So this is kind of the wild, wild west way of working collaboratively, meaning that is a first click on, first serve basis. If I click on this object first, then it's mine until I finish messing with it. All right, so let's go back to the PC now. Now let's say that, all right, I finished editing this wall and I've gone to something else. Now, even though I finished editing this wall, this person over here still can't click on that wall. Why? Because I have to synchronize to Central before the next person can edit something that I previously edited. And to do that, there's this little icon, this little tiny icon that's at the top, which you can see right here. Like this is the Synchronize to Central icon. And this little down arrow will bring up options of how you want to synchronize. So right now, this has the little green circular thing on it, which means that when you click it, it's going to bring up the synchronization dialog box, which looks like that. And you know, you can type a comment to say, I modified this wall and choose OK. But you know, you don't have to synchronize this way, and I don't really recommend it. It takes too long. Instead, what you can do is just click on this little down arrow and change it to the lightning, which means that it will just synchronize without you having to like say what you did or why you synchronize. So once you do that, the computer is just going to flicker for a little while. You know, Revit is just going to flicker, and that's it. Know that the PC has synchronized, it now frees up anything that you had previously touched, right? So back on the laptop, if I click on this wall now and I try to move it, it's still going to tell me that, hey, this object was modified. So I cannot modify this object until I see the latest version of this object, right? So Revit knows that somebody messed with this object, but what change was made, you're not able to see yet. So you now also need to synchronize with Central. So I'm gonna choose sync, which choose the little lightning thing at the top. Now, while you're doing this, you're gonna see OneNote doing all kind of, sorry, not OneNote, OneDrive doing all kinds of things. OneDrive is gonna tell you all kind of craziness, like files are being moved or files are being deleted really quickly, and you know, warning, there's a lot of things happening with your OneDrive. Don't worry about it. It's just Revit doing its thing, and OneDrive is set up to, when weird stuff happens with OneDrive, it's set up to give you warnings in case you're losing your files. But you're not losing your files. Revit is just doing a whole lot of things in the background, moving things around, you know, to synchronize stuff. All right, so notice that when I click sync, I got the new modification for this wall, right? And but notice on the left hand side that when I click sync, I didn't get the modification for see, you're getting those messages from OneDrive. Ignore it, ignore it. So notice that this parpet did not update on the PC, and that is because I synced before the laptop synced. So naturally I wouldn't have gotten that change, right? So if I synchronize again, then notice I get that change there. All right, and it happens relatively quickly. It's kind of the same thing as saving. All right, and that is basically how you would work collaboratively, where you just work and you synchronize so that both are synced simultaneously, right? So let's say that on the PC I say, oh well, wait, this is an error. These two walls not supposed to be this high. So I can say, okay, let me just move this wall back down. There we go. And let me just move this wall here back down. I'm just going to use my align tool and just kind of move that wall back down. Great. Right. And then I'm going to sync to Central by clicking the icon there. And as I said, syncing is kind of like saving. You're sending all of your adjustments to Central. Now, well, firstly, any questions so far on how this process works? Or maybe not? Anybody have any questions? Okay, guess not. All right, great. So this is how you would use work sharing in Revit. Now, when you guys set this up, then we can look at how you would set up work sets so that you can designate who edits what. All right, so that is pretty much our class for today. I will save this recording and have it so that so you will be able to watch it in the future. All right. So I will see you guys next week, and I guess you will see Miss Ramarak later. Okay, take care.
Okay, bye, sir.
All right, bye.